Hey everybody, it's Henry Gilbert, and I'm here with
Steve Papotusis,
the director or executive producer on
executive producer guy
on the Dead Space franchise, and they just showed a new build of Dead Space 3, the third game in the survival horror franchise. So first off, you showed off the new Kinect mode that's for the game. Could you explain that to us a little?
Sure, Henry. So in the past with Dead Space, we've experimented with Wii for Dead Space Extraction with motion controls. Then we did Dead Space Extraction on PlayStation 3 with the Move, but we never did voice controls. So with Kinect, we're getting a chance to do that. And the way it works is you can just use your voice to issue commands. So things like quick heal, use stasis, show objective, open inventory, all those things are accessible by just saying them, which is really nice. So when you're in the middle of fighting necromorphs, instead of like having to change your button press, you can just say use stasis and the game will stasis an enemy.
That's cool. That's cool. And also, you were showing a bit more of the co-op mode this time. Mainly, I noticed that the big change was that Carver apparently sees hallucinations that that Isaac doesn't see. What's the deal with that?
Sure. So one of the things we wanted to make sure we did with the game was make the second character meaningful and actually fit into the franchise. So I think a lot of people were concerned that we were just going to tack on some random guy that didn't really have a deep story or wasn't very interesting. But with Carver, he actually has a very interesting backstory. We revealed that a little bit at E3. And in Dead Space 3, you get to learn a lot about his personal story. Now, the part about dementia that you mentioned, that's really tied to the fact that he's around markers. Markers induce dementia, makes people do crazy and kooky things. And so Carver's no different. He's actually suffering from dementia and having some flashbacks in terms of his family. I don't want to spoil his story, but he's seeing certain things that trigger emotional events. And then those emotional events in the game actually open up areas when you're playing co-op. So you get additional side quests that you get to do. And in those additional side quests, they're focused around Carver, so you get more of his backstory. Now, the important thing I want everybody to know is it doesn't change the A to Z story. Like the story in single player is the same story in co-op. It's just you get extra details about Carver, and of course you get different dialogue and things like that, and you learn more about Carver, but the story itself is the same. It remains unchanged. It's not like the story with Carver then alters the ending. That's not how it works. It's you get to experience these fits of dementia, and those fits of dementia lead to some really interesting dynamics when you're playing online on the headsets. You're freaking out, you're player 2. I'm like, what are you doing, man? Help me out. And you're like, aren't you seeing this? Oh my God, do you see what I'm seeing? And you're like, no, shoot the necromorphs. And, so you get those kind of situations, and we're hoping that really messes with players' psyche, and it's different. We thought that'd be innovative, fun, and definitely Dead Space.
You've shown bits in outer space and derelict spaceships, but a lot of it takes place on the icy planets Volantis, or Volantis, I think. So I noticed, though, a lot of people were concerned that there'd be 2 open spaces, but in the demo I played today, there were a lot of really tight caves and corridors. How do you work on balancing that in the new Earth levels?
Yeah. That's a good question. So one of the things that's been important throughout all the Dead Space games is that our spaces are relatable and as realistic as we can possibly make them. So when we sat down to build Volantis, we definitely figured we would have sections that were tight, like those caves that you're walking through, because that's probably what the caves would be like, like what's boring out a cave. It's not going to be, up at the mountain pass, it's not going to be a giant bulldozer. It's probably going to be some creature, or an animal digging its way through. So we wanted to make those little passages feel like something real. On the surface of the planet, when you're out kind of in the snowy tundra areas, yeah, there's going to be a little bit more of an expansive area, but ultimately when you're inside the installations or you're inside the spaceships, those spaces are created specifically to try to emulate what we would imagine something in the future would be built like. So it's really important to us, and it always has been, to have very realistic metrics, and we adhere to that. It's important. So that sense of being inside of something or having a degree of claustrophobia is important, and we've retained that throughout all the games.
Well, thank you very much for your time. Dead Space 3 is out, I believe, February 5th, 2013.
Yes, sir.
On the 360, PS3, and PC. Is that correct?
And personal computer.
Yes, that's right. So keep looking on GamesRadar.com for more info on Dead Space 3, and we will see you later.